I am going to do this week a solid. That's right, I'm going to do a solid for all of you single guys out there, all of you single men on the dating scene, about to enter the dating scene, all you guys out there who want to appear self-aware and conscious because you know that fierce, beautiful women like dudes who are self-aware and conscious, all right? And the cool thing about it is, if you pay attention to what I'm about to say and actually think about it, you might develop some self-awareness and consciousness, which means you won't have to be faking those things the way you're faking your empathy, workout schedule, and income. Because I'm going to talk this week, I am going to attempt to wax semi-eloquent this week about attachment styles. I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to give it a try after we do the thing. I have to begin with a disclaimer. None of the following should be considered medical advice or mental health advice. I am not a psychiatrist. I am not a psychoanalyst. I am not a psychotherapist. I am not a medical doctor. I am not even a social worker, although I did once pretend to have a heart attack in a high school improv class. So that is the depth of my medical knowledge on this. I know how to fake a heart attack in a high school improv class. So don't take this as advice, okay? But do indeed take it as food for thought, all right? I'm about to talk about attachment styles. Why am I doing that? Well, if you've been listening for any length of time, you know that attachment has been what I've been putting into my crucible. If you've been listening for any length of time, you know I like to talk about crucibles. Crucible in metallurgy being a bowl, a high-test bowl into which you put metal to melt it down, melt out the impurities, create something more pure, something stronger. And life offers to us, day in and day out, crucibles. Crucibles for our self-awareness, consciousness, personal development. This is a hobby horse of mine, and I spent the better part of the last 15 years confronting my attachment style or my attachments. Now, normally I'm coming at this from a spiritual perspective, a Buddhist, a Taoist perspective that talks about, as the Buddha said, all life being suffering and all suffering being attachment. How we attach to things gives them the power to wound us in the losing of them. Well, there's also a scientific, psychiatric angle on this. And it's something that I'm just now beginning to contemplate from a different perspective. I have all this time considered all of this attachment stuff from a spiritual perspective. I'm now beginning to look at it from a scientific perspective because it's just come across my radar. And I am stepping into, potentially at some point, the dating world. And I need to be aware of how I attach to relationships, how I attach to new people, how I attach to circumstances. My crucible for all of this has been music. All right, I have faced the ringer of attachment in music, and it has really wrung out of me my particular attachment style. Now, the scientific basis for this, the root of this, the theoretical framework for all of this, is tied more or less to a couple of fairly high-profile psychiatrists and psychiatric researchers from the past century. They are a British cat called John Bowlby and a Canadian-American psychiatrist called Mary Ainsworth. And between the two of them, they're both researchers, They are both theoretical and set out experiments to try to understand these notions of attachment. And it started with Bowlby. And Bowlby had this idea that humanity, the human child, the human baby, is hardwired to attach to its parents. It is hardwired to connect to its parents. That's a survival thing. You know as well as I do that babies, human babies, are bloody helpless. Other animals, you watch a horse being born, it falls out, it shakes its head for a couple of seconds, and then it runs off faster than you ever will. Generally speaking, infants in the animal kingdom are far, far more advanced when they are born than we humans are. It takes us the better part of a quarter century to actually get on our feet, most of us. And so, human babies, being utterly helpless, need to, for their own safety, connect to and attach to their parents. But the style and flavor of that attachment is very much going to be affected by the way in which they are parented. All right, so your ability to attach to other people is very much affected by the way in which you attached to your parents. And so between Bowlby and Ainsworth, they settled on 4 very basic attachment styles that some version of which more or less apply to most people. They are secure attachment, anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, and disorganized attachment. Now, I'm not going to go deeply into what any of this means, because again, I am not a psychiatrist. I am not a psychiatric researcher. I can read, though, and so I've done a little bit of reading. And so the ideal is a secure attachment style. In that sort of style, your infant finds itself in the care of parents who are, generally speaking, responsive to it. All right, so the infant learns that when it has trouble, these caregiver figures will respond to its needs and try their best in a gentle, loving way to meet them. And so that infant feels as though its parents, and therefore by extension other people, can, generally speaking, be trusted. And so they grow up not so much being in fear of being abandoned, left alone, abused, hurt, injured. They grow up intrinsically believing that people are generally good, that the people they love them back. That is the breeding ground for a secure style of attachment, right? And then those people grow up facing the world believing that most people are generally good, believing that their needs can be met, believing that they are worthy of love because they have received it from infancy from their family. And so they get out into the world, they become adults, and they find themselves in circumstances where they may be rejected or something bad may happen, and they tend not to take that stuff personally. All right, somebody with secure attachment can be rejected and see that as a sad thing, but not a reflection of their own personal value and worth. They have known from infancy that they have value and worth intrinsically because that was demonstrated to them by their parents. Bad stuff happens, sad stuff happens, and they can mourn that and they can feel that, but they tend to have emotional stability, a general sense of self-confidence and self-worth, and a belief that they are intrinsically valuable and worthy of love and lovable. And so they go about their lives with a kind of assured confidence and optimism about how things are going to go because they know it's ingrained in them that they have value and worth and are lovable. And that's the ultimate. Right? That is what is to be aspired to. And we all know people like that. People who are simply self-assured, self-confident, don't take things super duper personally, are very rational, are able to be objective about things. Those people get into relationships and they don't fear losing their partner. What a thought. Those people get into relationships knowing they bring something of value to the table, knowing they are intrinsically worthy of love. They have value. They are not so much worried about their partner rejecting them. They are not worried about losing their partner to somebody else. The feeling is that even if they do lose their partner to somebody else, it's their loss. They know their worth. They know their value. And if their partner steps off into a different direction, that can hurt. That can hurt like hell, but it does not fundamentally or foundationally rock their sense of who they are. People with secure attachments know what they're bringing to the table. And if people reject that, their loss. And that is a very assured way to go through the world. And that's the aspiration. Problem is, there's a whole lot of us who do not have a secure attachment style. In fact, a lot of us, myself included, have an anxious attachment style. Well, what does that mean? That means, generally speaking, that as an infant, when you had needs, they were often not met, or they were met inconsistently, or they were not met in a healthy way. And so a child under that circumstance grows up feeling not what a securely attached person feels, which is the people I love me, and then I can trust and count on them. Somebody who is anxiously attached grows up feeling that the people I love may abandon me. And so the lesson that comes from that is I need to work really, really hard to make sure that the people I love don't abandon me. It's like love is not something that you are intrinsically worthy of. It's something you have to perform for. Love is something you have to earn. Love is something that you've got to jump through hoops for. And so people who are anxiously attached grow up deathly afraid of rejection, deathly afraid of abandonment, because as little kids, they felt as though they had been abandoned or rejected by their caregivers when care was not provided consistently or not provided at all, or provided in a kind of a destructive way. The message that gets through to that child is, I can't count on people unless I do something myself to earn that sort of love and attention and care from them. That creates an enormous amount of anxiety, because then as you grow up, everybody you meet in the world, you don't see as generally good and generally cooperative. You see everybody in the world as a potential to be rejected. That's your greatest fear from infancy, the fear that you may be rejected. That's me as an anxiously attached person. We'll come back to that. Other people become avoidant attachers. These are people whose caregivers simply ignored them. For the anxious person, the caregiver was there some of the time or provided really bad care and was very unpredictable, and that person grows up not really being able to trust anyone and fearing that they'll be rejected by everyone. Somebody who's avoidant probably grew up with parents who just didn't provide much care at all. A securely attached person said, the people I love me. An anxiously attached person says, the people I love may reject or abandon me. An avoidant style, that person grows up thinking the people I love will ignore me. And so it doesn't pay for those people to invest emotionally in anything, or to open themselves up, or to put themselves out there, because nobody cares. They'll just simply be ignored anyways, and they'll feel silly for having made themselves vulnerable. So if you are in a relationship with somebody who has an avoidant attachment style, you may find that they shut down on you, or that if you get too close, they will push you away. They don't want you in their space. You know, if you're having a fight with an avoidant person, they may just disappear on you. If you have a fight with a securely attached person, it will turn into hopefully, even if it's a tense argument, it'll be a rational one. And that person will present their point of view and be open to hearing yours, right? A securely attached person doesn't respond necessarily all that badly to criticism. A person is willing to have a discussion about it and see things from your perspective. Somebody who is anxiously attached, you get into a fight with that person and they're likely to just capitulate, to people please, to make you happy so you don't reject them. You can very easily manipulate an anxiously attached person because they're so desperate to not be rejected that they'll do or say almost anything. They'll bend over backwards to accommodate you because, again, their great fear is being rejected. Somebody who's avoidant, they don't want to be ignored, so they don't give you the opportunity. You can't ignore me if I walk away. And that is a form of self-preservation, right? They want their space. Real bad situation if you have a relationship between an anxious person, an anxious attacher, and an avoidant attacher. Because the anxious attacher is looking for any sign that their partner isn't interested anymore, or is cheating on them, or is stepping out, or is looking in another direction. And one of those signs is being ignored. But then you get, on the other side, the avoidant partner who just wants to be left alone. And so the anxious attacher, as soon as he or she sees or senses or perceives some problem in the dynamic, immediately is going looking for the reasons why, right? That monkey mind just jumps into action. Here's all the reasons that my partner is avoiding me right now. She doesn't love me anymore. She's with somebody else. She wants somebody else. She hates me. I'm not good enough. That is the battle cry of the anxious attacher. I'm not good enough. It's not the case. The avoidant shuts down. The avoidant can't deal with emotional intimacy because the avoidant has learned over time that being emotionally vulnerable just leads to disappointment and being ignored. And so they shut down before you've got a chance to have that conversation with them. And then if you have an anxious and an avoidant, you just got a merry-go-round happening. You can't resolve that. One is chasing the other all around the room. Very, very difficult. And then you get what's really the worst of both worlds, and that is the disorganized style of attachment. Securely attached person says the people I love me. Anxiously attached person says the people I love may reject me. The avoidant attachment style says the people I love will ignore me. The disorganized style of attachment says the people I love will hurt me. It's a weird mix of anxious attachment and avoidant attachment because their caregivers were probably volatile, may even have been abusive, if nothing else, extremely inconsistent, extremely unpredictable. And then a child learns, again, the child is hardwired to attach. They must attach to their parents in order to survive. It is a simple, natural, biological process. But then they get taught by these caregivers that caregivers can be dangerous. Caregivers can be abusive, violent, volatile, loud, angry. And then you get stuck in this really awful loop where part of you desperately wants to earn the love of your caregiver because that is a hardwired biological imperative. And then part of you wants to avoid caregivers altogether because getting too close to them means getting hurt, possibly even physically hurt. And so you are both anxious and avoidant. You are a house divided against yourself. I want you to think about these things because you are one of them. Nobody's all one of them, most likely. I think we all dip our toes in a few different ponds. There's probably a predominant style for everyone. And at different times, we may find ourselves attaching in different ways, all right? There is a nature versus nurture thing. Some people just simply have an anxious personality. I'm one of those. And then some of them learn lessons as children, as young teens, whatever. They get rejected by somebody or get rejected by someone, or they screw up in some way and it imprints on them. And they take on this self-concept that they're not worthy of love because they did a bad thing, or somebody said that they were unworthy of love, or somebody they love rejected them, or they had a breakup. There are a lot of factors that go into this, all right? It begins apparently in childhood. And then as your life experience unfolds, you may adopt different sorts of self-concept. You may have different experiences that nudge you in one direction or another. But stop and think about it, especially if you're having relationship problems. What sort of an attacher are you? Now, I think about this most of the time in the context of music, because music was my great crucible for encountering my attachments. How do you know that you've got an attachment problem? Well, in my case, you become overly attached to an artist, or overly attached to a gig, or overly attached to a tour, or whatever, an opportunity, a drum chair in my case, to the point where you spend your time not really indulging having that gig or working with that artist, but fretting about losing it. Now, in my case, I said, the rallying cry of anxiously attached people is I'm not good enough. And that was the frame of reference I had. That is the attitude with which I went into music at all. We know from past episodes and more recent episodes, I had an enormous stage fright. I had an enormous fear of performing in front of people or even jamming with people. And the fear was that they would find out I'm just not a good enough drummer. And I would be embarrassed, I would be rejected, I would be abandoned. All right, that goes all the way back to stuff I can't even remember that imprinted on me as a little child. And so I entered the music world with this belief behind me that I'm not good enough. And then I anxiously attach to anybody I'm playing with for fear that they're going to reject me, fire me, let me go, not hire me. They're going to find out that I'm not worthy to play with them. I am not intrinsically valuable as a drummer, as a human being. And so you bend over backwards and you take a lot of crap from people in certain circumstances that you should not, that a securely attached person would not. All right? A securely attached person, having crap dumped upon them, would stick out a hand and step back and say, you don't get to talk to me that way. You don't get to treat me that way. And I'm walking. And it's your friggin' loss. Securely attached person doesn't have to be a dick about that, but can be very firm about it. It's like, I don't need this gig. I'll get another gig. I'll get a better gig. It's you who needs me because I know what I bring to the table and it's friggin' great and it's friggin' valuable. And if you don't want it, fine, I'm going elsewhere. An anxiously attached person doesn't do that. An anxiously attached person says, this is the best gig I'll ever be able to get. I can't even believe I've got it right now. And if they're upset, it's because they know I'm not a good enough player. And so I've got to really ingratiate myself and I've got to go over the top. I've got to go above and beyond in trying to serve this artist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was guilty of all of that. There were times I should have walked away. There were times I should have said, 9. No, you're not valuing nearly enough what I bring to this game. And I'm going elsewhere to somebody who does. Didn't do that. Instead, I would, get the chair and then worry about losing it and be worried all the time that the artist I was playing with really wishes somebody else was in that chair playing those gigs, but that person wasn't available or whatever. And so they're stuck with me. And it took me a damn long time in that crucible, having gallbladder attacks, having frigging anxiety, being frustrated and angry and worried about my position instead of enjoying it. It took me years of doing that in the crucible of music to finally come out the other side and realize, actually, I bring a hell of a lot to the table. Actually, in certain circumstances, I'm a pretty damn good drummer and a fine backup singer. By the way, I have intrinsic value as a player. What I do is good and useful and fits in a lot of friggin' places. And I'm not going to take crap from people. And I'm not going to fear rejection by people whose music I play really, really well and whose bands I can be a really strong, helpful, positive part of. But it took me probably a decade in the crucible of music to begin to reformulate a more secure attachment style, to myself and to my playing, and then as an extension of that, to the gigs that I get and to the artists that I perform with. And what it does is it makes me a hell of a better drummer than I was. I was already okay. But if you enter into an artist relationship as a securely attached person, knowing your own value, knowing what you bring to the table, still doing it with humility and a desire to be your very best for the artist, that's just being a pro. But if you come in with that attitude, you play way less tight, man. You play way less tight because you're not worried about being rejected. You're not fearful about being rejected. It's like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do what I do, I'm going to do my thing, I'm going to play the way I play, I'm going to sing the way I sing, I'm going to take correction if correction is required, I'm going to do my best on the gig. And if they decide they don't want that, okay, their loss, somebody else's gain. But it's not a judgment on my value as a player or my value as a human being. You know, people who are severely anxiously attached get into all sorts of awful and manipulative situations because they think that's the best they can do. They think that's all their value allows for. They're lucky to have somebody to abuse them or manipulate them or take advantage of them. And that sort of attachment style will just lead you to disease. It will lead you to extreme anxiety, not just in music, but in any circumstance, in a job and in a relationship. And I think about this now in the context of relationships, because I know in the past, as an anxiously attached person, you can enter a relationship with somebody and be worried all the time that you're going to be rejected by that person. The modern trope of the anxiously attached person in a relationship is the person who's reading between the lines on all the texts, looking for some kind of subtext that suggests a subtle rejection or an insult. Or they haven't written me back in an hour. They're with somebody else. They're avoiding me. You know what I mean? This over-the-top monkey mind reaction to things that are very benign and not even intentional. A securely attached person says, yeah, my love interest hasn't texted in an hour. Probably busy. Maybe doing something. People have lives. And the anxiously attached person is like, they haven't texted me back in an hour. They don't like me. They're very obviously with somebody else. They're obviously messing around on me. They obviously don't love me. Why the hell would they love me? They don't want me. They're taking advantage of me. What do I do? How do I fix it? How do I fix it? What do I do? And then they probably, in some cases, go over the top, texting a million times and coming off like a crazy person. Or if they've got just a hint of the avoidant in them, they might go radio silent themselves just to show them, you know what I mean? And react in all sorts of manipulative and immature ways. That's not me, but I do recognize the potential or the tendency for myself in a dating situation to become a little bit jealous. I mean, this is the past I'm talking about. Jealous, fearful, worried that somebody I like might be smiling at somebody else. And what does that mean? Are they going to reject me? I could see potentially younger me in that scenario kind of falling into that trap, becoming possessive, self-conscious, worried all the time. And thank you to the crucible of music, and thank you to my own personal growth, the therapy I've done, the thinking, the inquiring into my own psychology that I've done. I don't expect I'll approach relationships that way. I'm learning what I want all of you to learn, which is the reason I'm doing this episode at all, is that you have enormous value. And I have learned that I have enormous value. As I have looked warily over the parapet at the dating world and what my place might be in it, I realize, especially after all of the work I've done, particularly in the last 5 to 10 years, through music and therapy and anxiety and a separation and what all of that means, I've come to recognize in myself a strength I didn't know I had, a consciousness I didn't know I had that had to be developed, and a sense of my own value, as a human being, as a man, as a partner. And so I see myself now entering relationships, if I do, as a much more securely attached person who is not worried about rejection, right? Who is not fretting every 5 seconds I don't hear from my partner that she's with somebody else or interested in somebody else. I may be rejected. Chances are good that I will be, but it won't be a shot at my personal intrinsic value, and it will be that person's loss, I promise you. Not everybody has done the work that I have done, kids, and I know full well that should I ever enter another relationship, I will enter that relationship as a person with extraordinary value, extraordinary potential as a partner. And anyone who rejects that rejects something pretty great. And that is not an arrogant attitude. That is a secure attachment. There may be pain, there may be sadness, there may be suffering in the future, but there comes with that now, with more secure attachment, a belief that I'm strong enough to endure that, a belief that my value is such that whoever would reject me is rejecting something freaking great, and somebody else is going to hit the damn jackpot. Again, it's not an arrogance thing. It's a self-worth thing. It's a self-value thing. It's not something I had before, and it's taken years of therapy, years of self-inquiry, years of suffering to come through to this other point, and I want to help you not have to do that right now. If you are an avoidant style of attacher, if you are an anxious style of attacher, if you are a disorganized style of attacher, there is a fundamental here, and the fundamental here is your own value. All of those styles of attachment that are toxic or not super effective or healthy come down to a fundamental belief that you are not good enough, that you do not have value, that what is special about you is not special, or that you're not special at all. I'm here to tell you that you are. I've had to discover and appreciate my own specialness, and I have some. So do each of you. And so what I want you to do, if you are any one of those not so healthy styles of attacher, is I want you to be able to recognize the value in yourself. Now, those of us who grew up with these styles of attachment, grew up believing we weren't good enough, grew up believing we weren't worth people's time, grew up believing that whatever mattered to us didn't matter to other people. Like we were second rate, like we were not good enough. It doesn't matter which one of those three kind of toxic attachment styles you have. The fundamental comes down to feeling as though you don't have any value. And I'm here to tell you that it's not friggin' true. I am here to tell you, faithful listener, that you are the friggin' bomb. In some damn way, every one of you listening is the friggin' bomb. And I can say that with complete assuredness because I know almost all of you personally. Almost nobody listens to this podcast that I don't know personally, such as my audience. So I can tell you, all of you musicians, that you bring incredible talent, all right? I can tell you, all of you teachers out there I know, that your empathy and your heart and your care and your concern is extraordinary. And the diligence that you bring to the classroom every day. And I know it drives you friggin' crazy. Every one of you. It's a lot of you, I know. And I know it drives you crazy. And I know you feel like it's a thankless job. And I know a lot of times you feel like you don't get any support. I know a lot of times you feel like you don't make any difference. Well, guess what? The heart that you bring to this is beautiful and extraordinary, and people feel it. People maybe don't feel it for years, but they feel it. And there is something intrinsically valuable and special about people who would dedicate themselves to the service of others in that way. It's not just teachers, that's medical people, that's cops, that's firefighters, that's people who serve the public good, which is what I attempt to do in my professional life. I have artists out there who listen. I have actors. I have, of course, zillions of musicians, people who are raising families, people who have the most extraordinary talent. I was, pre-separation, building this gallery of art by my friends. I'm looking at a Denny Gautier and a Don Red Sky and a Jeff Dewsbury right now as I sit here. Extraordinary stuff. Extraordinary stuff. Quite apart from all of the songwriters I know, quite apart from all of the people who just make, like Lindsay of Lindsay and the Lonelies, makes incredible crafts, incredible stuff. I know people who are incredible bakers, chefs, and they don't even really recognize their own ability. They just think it's normal. It's not. What you do is amazing. And going through life, fearing being rejected while possessing all of this innate talent, goodness, heart. It's an awful thing to think that you should take crap from people. It's an awful thing to think that you have to put up with people's garbage and be disrespected and not treated properly and not cared for properly because you have some sort of feeling about your own self-worth that that's the best you can do or the best you deserve. It's not friggin' true. And I'm here, your Uncle J-Dubs. I'm here to pump you up this week. I'm here to pump me up this week. I'm here to pump up this week anybody who is settling for anything. I'm giving you a shot in the arm right now because settling is in some ways, I think, a symptom of insecure attachment. I think, obviously, there are circumstances. I know that there are mitigating circumstances to almost any situation. But the fundamental truth remains the fundamental truth. You, gentle listener, are an absolutely beautiful and extraordinary human being. And you deserve the very damn best. And you deserve to live a life of joy and happiness in the way that you want to live it. You do not deserve, and life is way too short, to go around being rejected, feeling unworthy, feeling like you can't do the things you want to do with your frigging life. And I want you to walk into the world knowing your damn value. I want me to walk into the world knowing my damn value, whether that is the musical world, whether that is the dating world. I want all of us to know how extraordinary and wonderful we are. Doesn't mean you're perfect. Doesn't mean day in, day out, you exhibit the best of yourself in a perfect way. Nobody does. We are, after all, human. But I don't want you going around thinking you're not good enough. I don't want you going around thinking you're not worthy. I don't want you going around feeling as though you have to put up with disrespect from anyone. And I don't want you going around thinking you can't handle rejection or that rejection in some way reflects on your value as a human being. It does not. It does not. And I know if you're listening to this, I know if you're listening to this that you are a good person. I know it because I know all of you personally. And so if you're living right now, not going for it, if you're living right now settling for less than you know you are worth, know you can be, know you can have, know you deserve, I want you to examine your attachment style. All right, why? Why are you fearing rejection right now? Who are you fearing rejection from? Why are you avoiding conversations right now? Why are you avoiding intimacy? Why are you avoiding emotional exchange? All right, what is the underlying message there? If you are having problems in your relationship, problems with communication, check your attachment style, check your partner's attachment style. What are we running up against here? And then collectively, together, can we begin to understand how to communicate with each other, being these sort of attachers that we are? And if you're in the dating world and you fear being rejected, stop it. Stop it. Anyone who does not see your worth and value is not worth your time. Do not fear rejection. Show up. Show up as the wonderful lunatic you are, but show up authentically and show up real. All right? Some people are not going to go for that. Cool, they're not your people. Somebody is, and that's your person. And when you meet that person, you want to do so honestly. Chris Rock said, when you start dating somebody, you're not dating the real person, you're dating their representative. The real person lies underneath. Well, I'm saying show up as you. I'm saying be securely attached to yourself. Go into relationships secure in your knowledge that you are the bomb, man or lady. And I'm feeling a real strong pull about this right now. It's not really about me. I mean, I've learned a lot. And in the past 15 months in particular, I've recovered a part of myself that's been lost. I've recovered something that I subjugated. I am responsible for my own damn mess. All right. My marriage fell apart for reasons. A lot of them are to do with me, my self-concept, and the way I approach the world, the way I attach to things, the way I attach to myself. I had to own that. All right. And I lost a part of myself in the process. But in the past 15 months, as a single person, I've begun to recover that. And I've seen the ways in which my attachment style has effed up my life. Made me sick, given me all sorts of stress and anxiety and depression. And if it's doing that to you, this is powerful knowledge. You have been suddenly armed with a place to look for the root of your anxiety, for the root of your depression, for the root of your jealousy, for the root of why you are such a people pleaser, for the root of why you take disrespect from anybody, let alone the people who purport to love you. And we can stop that. We can stop that right now. And the first step is to examine your own attachment style. Try to understand where that comes from and what it means. And then begin to recognize what an extraordinary person you are. And then face the world every day knowing you're the bomb, man. And you should fear no rejection, because anybody who rejects you is just missing out, just utterly missing out. And somebody else is going to hit the damn jackpot. I'm going to stop talking because it's already getting late and I got to edit this whole damn thing and get it published. Just a diatribe because I know people are struggling. I know people are suffering, and I don't want you to. I want you to not be who I have been. I want you to recognize your own damn value, and I want you to face the world armed with your own damn value, and I want you to go out there and be friggin' great. Things are difficult right now. Things are tough for artists, all this AI crap. Things are tough for musicians, which I know is a large percentage of this audience. Own it, man. Own who you are. Own the way you write. Own the way you play. Own the way you show up in the world. Don't hurt anybody. Be humble, but recognize how wonderful you are. Recognize how wonderful you are, and for God's sake, don't take it from anybody. I want to thank you ever so much for listening. I hope this diatribe didn't frighten you. Thank you again for the feedback on the recent episodes. Remember, kids, good things happen when you put yourself out there, okay? Now go screw up your value and put yourself out there. I've been hearing stories from people ever since drowning lessons. I've been hearing that people are a little bit inspired. And damn it, man, if I accomplish nothing else with this podcast, inspiring a few people is a pretty good legacy. Thank you for listening. I will be back next week with something, provided I don't drown at this week's drowning lesson. And do take care.